Dr. Han Sujai stood at her office window, watching children play in the daycare center's playground below. The sound of their laughter floated up to the third floor, making her smile. It was a normal Tuesday morning in Seoul, or at least it was, until the aliens arrived. The massive ship appeared without warning, floating silently above the city like a giant silver dinner plate. Sujai first thought it was a weird-looking cloud, until it started glowing blue. News alerts buzzed on every phone and screen around her. The children in the playground stopped playing and pointed up at the sky, their mouths open in wonder. "Dr. Han, you need to see this," her assistant called from the hallway. "The government is making an announcement." Suji walked to the staff room, where everyone gathered around the TV. The president of the United Earth Council appeared on screen, standing next to a tall, silvery figure. The alien looked almost human, but its skin shimmered like metal and its eyes glowed with a soft blue light. "Citizens of Earth," the president said, "today we welcome Ambassador Rix of the Stellar Council." The alien stepped forward. Its voice sounded like wind chimes mixed with a computer. "We have watched your species for 50 Earth years," it said. "We come with concerns about your development." Suji felt her stomach tighten. She had dealt with many worried parents, but worried aliens. That was new. The next day, Suji got a surprising call. The government wanted her to attend a special meeting with the aliens. As one of the world's top child development experts, they needed her knowledge. She didn't know why, but she packed her favorite research papers anyway. The meeting room was in a tall government building. Suji sat at a long table with other human experts, scientists, doctors, and military officers. Ambassador Rix sat across from them with 3 other aliens. "Your species is primitive," Rix said bluntly. "You let emotions control your actions. You waste time on inefficient social customs. You spend years raising your young instead of using proper programming methods." Captain Kim Duha, a tall man in a crisp military uniform, spoke up. "With all respect, Ambassador, our emotions and social customs are what make us human." "Exactly," Rick said. "And that is the problem." Suji watched the aliens carefully. Something seemed off about them. They sat too still, didn't move their hands when they talked, and never showed any expression. They reminded her of the robots in her daycare's toy corner. "May I ask a question?" Sujai raised her hand. When Rix nodded, she continued, "How do your people raise children?" The question made the aliens stir slightly, the first real reaction she'd seen from them. "Our young are raised in education pods," Rix explained. "They receive direct neural programming for all necessary skills and knowledge. It is perfectly efficient." "And how are they doing?" Suji asked softly. "Are they happy? Healthy? Creative?" The aliens looked at each other. For the first time, they seemed uncertain. Rix paused. "We are experiencing some difficulties. Our young are not developing as expected. They reject programming, refuse to follow logical patterns, and show concerning behaviors. That is partly why we are here." Sujai leaned forward. Now they were getting somewhere. "Tell me more about these behaviors." As Rix described the problems: violence, withdrawal, failure to learn, inability to work in groups. Sujai recognized the signs immediately. She had seen similar behaviors in children who didn't get enough emotional care and attention. "Ambassador," she said, "I think I know what's wrong with your children. And I don't think the problem is that humans are too primitive. I think it might be that your methods are not advanced enough." The alien's blue eyes all fixed on her. The room went quiet. "Explain," Rix demanded. Sujai smiled. "I'd be happy to. But first, would you like to visit my daycare center? Sometimes seeing is better than explaining." Captain Duha gave her a surprised look, but she knew what she was doing. These aliens thought humans were primitive because they didn't understand what they were seeing. Maybe it was time to show them that love, play, and human connection weren't primitive at all. They were the most advanced technologies in the universe. Rix considered her offer for a long moment. Finally, it nodded. We will observe your methods, though I doubt they will prove useful. Suja gathered her things, hiding another smile. She had a feeling these aliens were about to learn some very surprising lessons about the power of human primitiveness. The alien visitors followed Suji through her daycare center like tall, shiny ghosts. They watched the children play, draw, and learn with glowing blue eyes that missed nothing. Ambassador Rix took notes on a floating screen, while the other aliens recorded everything with tiny devices on their wrists. This seems very chaotic, Rix said, watching a group of 4-year-olds build a castle with blocks. Organized chaos, Suji explained. They're learning teamwork, spatial awareness, and problem-solving all at once. Captain Duha stood by the door, trying not to laugh as one brave little girl walked up to an alien and offered it a toy dinosaur. The alien held the plastic T-Rex like it might explode. "What is the purpose of this object?" the alien asked. "For fun," the little girl said simply, then skipped away to join her friends. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. "Fun is not efficient," one of them said. Suji was about to explain why fun was actually very important when a loud alarm came from Ambassador Rix's floating screen. The aliens gathered around it quickly, their faces showing what looked like worry. If aliens could worry. "We must return to our ship," Rix announced. There has been an incident. Back in the government meeting room an hour later, Suji and Duha learned what the incident was. On the main screen, they watched a video from an alien nursery ship. Young aliens, looking like smaller versions of the adults but with darker skin, were throwing things, breaking equipment, and refusing to enter their learning pods. "This is happening on all nursery ships now," Rix said. The ambassador's voice actually shook a little. "Our young are becoming impossible to control. Some are even showing signs of—" Rix paused as if the word was painful. "Imagination." Duha coughed to hide another laugh. Suji kicked him under the table. "How many children are we talking about?" Suji asked. "Across our fleet, we have 50,000 young ones between the ages of 2 and 10 Earth years," Rix replied. "All of them are showing concerning behaviors. Some refuse to accept programming. Others create illogical stories or draw pictures that don't match reality. Many demand physical contact with their caregivers." Suji's heart hurt hearing this. These children weren't misbehaving. They were starving for love and attention. "Ambassador," she said gently, "everything you're describing is normal child behavior. Children need play, physical contact, and yes, even imagination to develop properly." "Impossible," another alien said. "Our species has used pod learning for 10,000 years. And in all that time," Duha asked suddenly, "have your children ever been happy?" The question made all the aliens freeze. They looked at each other, then back at their screens. "Happiness is not a measurable metric," Rick said, but sounded unsure. Sujo stood up and walked to the main screen. She pointed to an alien child who was hugging a broken teaching robot. "Look at this little one. They're not being violent. They're trying to show affection. Your children don't need better programming. They need love, attention, and understanding." The aliens watched the video again. For the first time, they seemed to see what was really happening. "Can you?" Rix hesitated. "Can you help us?" Suju smiled. "Yes, but you'll have to trust our primitive methods. Captain Duha and I will need to visit your nursery ships. We'll need to bring a team of human child care experts, and you'll have to be open to doing things very differently." The aliens had a quick discussion in their own language. Finally, Rix turned back to them. "We accept your terms," the ambassador said, "but we have one condition. You must show measurable results within 3 Earth months, or we will return to our traditional methods." "Challenge accepted," Duha said, grinning at Suje. "When do we start?" Suji was already making plans in her head. She would need her best people for this job. Teaching aliens about love and childcare wouldn't be easy, but she had a feeling it might be the most important work of her life. "We start right now," she said. "First, We need to see those nursery ships. And please, bring that little one their own robot to hug. No child should have to play with broken toys. The alien nursery ship looked like a giant silver honeycomb from the inside. Suji, Duha, and their new team member Lee Jinwoo walked down long hallways lit by soft blue lights. Jinwoo had worked as a pediatric nurse for 15 years, and nothing in his experience had prepared him for this. Each hexagon is a learning pod, their alien guide explained. The young ones spend 20 hours per day inside them. 20 hours. Jinwoo stopped walking. When do they play? When do they eat together? When do they just be kids? The alien tilted its head. They receive nutrient injections while they learn. Play is not necessary for development. Suji watched through a clear wall as a small alien child sat alone in their pod, staring at floating holograms of numbers and letters. The child's eyes looked dull and tired. "May we see inside one of the pods?" she asked. The guide pressed a button, and a door slid open. The pod was small, just big enough for a child to sit or lie down. The walls showed educational programs, and wires hung down from the ceiling. The wires connect to their neural ports, the guide said. This allows direct download of information. Duha looked sick. "They're just tiny prison cells," he whispered to Suji. A loud crash came from somewhere down the hall. Their guide's eyes flashed red, the first real color they'd seen from an alien. "Not again," it said, hurrying toward the noise. They found the source in pod 247. A young alien had ripped out all the wires and was drawing on the walls with a broken piece of equipment. But they weren't drawing random marks. They had created a picture of what looked like a family holding hands. "Stop this at once," the guide demanded. The child looked at them with bright eyes. "I want to go out," it said in a small voice. "I want friends." Jinwoo stepped forward slowly and knelt down to the child's level. "Hello," he said softly. "My name is Jinwoo. Did you draw this picture?" The child nodded. "It's wrong. Pictures must be geometric and logical. But I saw images of human families in my learning programs. And—" The child touched the drawing gently. "I want this." Suji turned to the guide. "How often do the children interact with each other?" "Interaction leads to distraction," the guide replied. "They meet once every 30 days for physical exercise. Once a month." Jinwoo stood up, still holding the child's drawing. "That's not enough. Children need daily social interaction. They need to play together, learn together, grow together." Suji walked down the hall, looking in each pod. Every child she saw was alone, many looking sad or angry. Some were sleeping, still connected to their wires. Others stared blankly at their lessons. "This ends today," she said firmly. She turned to Duha. "Captain, remember that empty cargo bay we saw earlier?" Duha nodded. "The big one on level 3. "That's our new classroom," Suji said. "Jinwoo, how fast can you set up a play area?" Jinwoo grinned. "Give me 2 hours and some basic supplies." The guide's eyes flashed between red and blue. "You cannot disrupt the learning schedule." The council asked for our help," Duha interrupted. "And we're giving it. These kids need sunshine, even if it's artificial. They need toys, games, and most importantly, each other." Suji knelt next to the child who had drawn the picture. "Would you like to meet other children? To play games and make friends?" The child's eyes lit up brighter than any aliens they'd seen so far. "Yes. Please, yes." "Then let's start there," Suji said. She stood and faced the guide. "Go get your supervisor. Tell them we need all children aged 2 to 5 Earth years in the cargo bay in 3 hours. And we'll need clean clothes for them. No more learning suits." The guide started to protest, but Suji held up her hand. "You wanted human help. This is it. We're going to show you what real learning looks like." She smiled at the child, who was still looking at their drawing. And maybe we'll start with some art classes. As they walked away to prepare the cargo bay, Jinwoo whispered to Suji, "Think this will work?" Suji watched as the child carefully folded their drawing and hid it in their pocket, a small act of rebellion and hope. "It has to," she said, "because every child in the universe deserves to draw their dreams." 3 days later, the cargo bay of the nursery ship looked completely different. Jinwoo and the team had turned it into a bright, colorful classroom. They hung soft lights that looked like stars on the ceiling. The floor had soft mats in many colors. There were boxes of toys, art supplies, and even a small playground structure that Dooha's engineering team had built. Park Myrae, the child psychologist who had joined their team, stood in the middle of the room. She watched as 30 young aliens entered with their guide. The children moved in a straight line, not talking or looking around. "Welcome, everyone," Myrae said warmly. "This is your new classroom. Here, you can play, learn, and make friends." The children stayed in their line, looking confused. One small alien in the front spoke up. "When do we connect to the learning wires?" "No more wires," Suji said, walking in with more supplies. "Today, we learn by doing." At first, the children didn't move. They stood still, waiting for orders. Myrae picked up a soft ball and rolled it gently toward them. It stopped at the feet of a child in the front row. The child looked down at it, then up at Myrae. "Go ahead," Myrae encouraged. "Pick it up." Slowly, the child reached down and touched the ball. Their eyes widened at the soft feeling. They picked it up, and their skin glowed a little brighter. "Would you like to roll it to someone else?" Myrae asked. The child looked around at the others, then carefully rolled the ball to another child. Soon, more balls appeared. Jinwoo started showing them how to throw and catch. Within minutes, the straight line had broken up as children moved around to play with the balls. "Impossible," the alien guide whispered. "They're smiling." Dooha, who was setting up more play equipment, grinned. "Just wait. This is only the beginning." Myrae moved between the children, showing them different toys and games. She noticed one child standing alone, looking at the art supplies. "Would you like to draw?" she asked, kneeling beside them. The child jumped. "Drawing must be geometric and logical." "Not here," Myrae said. She took out some paper and colorful markers. "Here you can draw anything you imagine." The child's eyes got very bright. Soon, they were drawing swirls of colors and shapes that looked like flowers. Other children saw this and came to join. Within an hour, the art table was full of young aliens creating colorful pictures. Suji watched as Jinwoo taught a group how to build with blocks. The children were clumsy at first, but they learned quickly. When one child's tower fell down, they looked ready to cry, something aliens weren't supposed to do. "It's okay," Jinwoo said gently. "We can build it again. Sometimes things fall down, but that's how we learn." The child stared at him, then at their fallen blocks. Slowly, they started to rebuild. This time, other children came to help. "Dr. Han," the guide said, watching all this, "these activities seem inefficient. How do they learn proper knowledge?" "Watch," Suji said. She pointed to the block builders. "They're learning physics, teamwork, and problem solving. The artists are developing creativity and fine motor skills. The ball players are learning coordination and social skills." Myrae joined them, holding several drawings. "And look at this, they're already showing emotional growth. These pictures have feelings in them. That's huge progress." The guide studied the drawings. "The council will want test results, numbers, data. They'll get them," Park Myrae said firmly. "But first, these children need to remember how to be children." Just then, a laugh rang out. A real laugh, perhaps the first one ever heard on the nursery ship. Everyone turned to see a group of children playing peekaboo with Jinwoo. They were giggling and hiding behind their hands. "That sound," the guide said quietly, I have never heard our young ones make that sound before. Suju smiled. That's the sound of healing. And it's just day one. Outside the cargo bay windows, stars streamed by in space. But inside, something even more amazing was happening. Alien children were finally learning what it meant to be young, to play, to feel joy. The human experiment had begun. 2 weeks into the human experiment, Choi Ta-won sat at his desk surrounded by floating screens full of data. As the team's researcher, he had been tracking every change in the alien children's behavior. What he saw made him smile. Suji, he called out. You need to see these numbers. Suji walked over, followed by Duha and Meirei. Taiwan pointed to his charts. Look at this. Stress levels down by 60%. Brain activity patterns show better integration. And here's the best part. Learning retention is up by 45%. They're learning better because they're happier, Meirei said, looking at the charts. Just like human children. Their celebration was interrupted when the door slid open. A tall alien with silver-white skin walked in, followed by Ambassador Rix. The new alien's eyes glowed red instead of blue. Senior Administrator Vec, Rix said, these are the human experts I told you about. Vec looked around the room with clear disapproval. I see you have turned our advanced learning facility into a playground. A learning center, Suji corrected politely. Would you like to see the results? I have seen enough, Vec said. Your primitive methods are contaminating our young ones. They are drawing non-geometric shapes. They are making unnecessary noise. Some are even requesting physical contact with their caregivers. Those are all signs of healthy development, Jin Woo said, walking in with a group of children. The young aliens were carrying art projects they had made, paper chains of different colors. Vec watched as the children showed their work to Suji and Meirei. Each child was glowing brightly, their skin shimmering with happiness. Look what we made, one child said proudly. It's a friendship chain. Each color is one of us. This is exactly what I mean, Vec said sharply. They are becoming emotional, illogical, like humans. Taiwan stood up, holding his datapad. With respect. Administrator, the data shows. Data can be manipulated, Vec interrupted. I care about maintaining our species' purity. These human methods are a virus infecting our perfect system. The children had gone quiet, their glow dimming. One small alien grabbed Jin Woo's hand, something that made Vec's eyes flash even redder. Duha stepped forward. Administrator, before you make any decisions, let us show you something. He led everyone to the observation window overlooking the new classroom. Below, more alien children were engaged in different activities. Some built complex structures with blocks, working together to solve engineering problems. Others used simple robots to learn programming through play. A group in the corner was learning mathematics by playing counting games. Watch them, Suji said quietly. Really watch them. The children below worked with focus and energy. When they had problems, they helped each other. When they succeeded, they celebrated together. Their skin glowed with different colors as they felt different emotions, something that had never happened before. They're not just learning facts, Meirei explained. They're learning how to think, how to solve problems, how to work together. These are the skills that build advanced civilizations. Vec was silent for a long moment. The council wants data, he finally said. You have 1 more week to prove these methods work. If you fail, all children return to their pods immediately. After Vec left, Ambassador Rix stayed behind. I apologize, Rix said. Vec represents many who fear change. But perhaps, Rix looked down at the children still playing below. Perhaps some fear is necessary for growth. Suji gathered her team. 1 week, she said. We need to show them proof that can't be ignored. Taiwan was already working on his computer. I'll run every test we have. We'll prove that love and learning go together. And I'll document everything, Meirei added. Every smile, every breakthrough, every step forward. Duva looked at the children, still holding their paper chain. "We won't let them go back to those pods," he said firmly. "We can't." The children looked up at the humans with trust in their bright eyes. Suji knew they couldn't fail, not just for the data or the experiment, but for every child who had just discovered what it meant to be truly alive. Song Haijin walked into the nursery ship's classroom carrying a large, colorful book. As the team's cultural specialist, she had a special plan for today. The alien children sat in a circle on soft cushions, watching her with curious eyes. "Today," she said, sitting down in the circle, "we're going to do something humans have done for thousands of years. We're going to tell a story." The children looked confused. One raised their hand. "Is this for learning history facts?" "It's for learning about life," Haijin said with a smile. She opened the book, showing beautiful pictures of stars and planets. "This is a story about a lonely star who wanted to make friends." As she read, something magical happened. The children's skin began to glow with new colors, soft purples and pinks they had never shown before. They leaned forward, completely focused on the story and pictures. The star traveled through space, meeting different planets. Haijin continued. Each planet was special in its own way. Some were big, some were small, some were hot, some were cold. But the star learned that everyone had something wonderful to share. "Like us," one child said suddenly. "We're all different too." Haijin nodded, her heart warming. "Exactly like you." From the observation room above, Sujai and Ambassador Rix watched the scene unfold. "I don't understand," Rix said. "These are just made-up words and pictures. How does this help them learn?" "Stories teach us about ourselves," Sujai explained. "They help us understand feelings, solve problems, and imagine new possibilities." Down below, Haijin had finished the story. Now the children were acting it out, pretending to be different planets and stars. They moved around each other like a living solar system, their skin glowing with joy. "Watch this," Suji said. She pressed a button to activate the room's learning test system. On screens around the room, questions appeared about space, gravity, and planetary motion, all things mentioned in the story. The children answered them easily while still playing their game. 89% accuracy. Ta-1 reported from his computer. Better than pod learning ever achieved. Rix's eyes flickered with surprise. They are learning. Through play. And through stories, Haijin said, joining them. Stories are how humans passed down knowledge for generations before we had books or computers. Just then, one of the alien children raised their hand. "Teacher Haijin, can we make our own story?" The other children got excited, their skin sparkling with different colors. Haijin sat back down in the circle, taking out a blank digital pad. "Of course," she said. "What shall it be about?" "About us," they said together. "About how we learned to play." For the next hour, the children created their own story. They told about living in pods, feeling lonely, and then meeting the humans who taught them to laugh and play. They drew pictures, made up songs, and acted out different parts. Even the alien guides watching from the side seemed moved. One of them was taking notes with shaking hands. "Ambassador," Sujui said softly, "your children aren't just learning facts anymore. They're learning to create, to imagine, to feel. These aren't primitive skills. They're the most advanced abilities any species can have." Rix watched as the children finished their story with a song about friendship. The ambassador's eyes had changed color. Now they glowed with a soft purple, just like the children's. "Perhaps," Rix said slowly, "we have been wrong about what it means to be advanced." Haijin looked up from the children's circle and smiled. More alien children from other classes had gathered at the door, drawn by the sounds of laughter and song. "Should we let them join?" she asked. Suji nodded. Everyone deserves to hear a good story. As more children filled the room, their combined glow created patterns of light on the walls like dancing stars. Their story wasn't just about learning anymore. It was about finding joy, connection, and the power of sharing both knowledge and love. The alarm woke Sujai at 3 in the morning. Red lights flashed through the human quarters of the nursery ship. Captain Duha was already at her door. "We have trouble," he said. "Vec is here with armed guards. They're trying to take the children back to their pods." Sujai rushed to get dressed. "Call Yoon Jae-ho. We need our security expert." Jae-ho met them in the hallway. The tall security specialist looked calm, but his eyes were serious. "Vec brought 20 guards," he reported. "They're heading for the classroom level." The children. Suji started running. Some of them sleep there now. Since the program began, many children had asked to sleep in the new dormitory next to the classroom instead of their pods. The team had made it cozy, with soft beds and night lights that looked like stars. They reached the classroom level just as Vec and his guards were approaching the dormitory doors. Jin Woo and Mayray stood in front of the doors, refusing to move. "Step aside," Vec ordered. "This experiment is over. The council has decided these primitive methods must stop." "The council gave us a week," Suji said, joining Jin Woo and Mayray. "We still have 2 days left." "The contamination has gone too far," Vec said. "Look what you've done to them. They sing. They draw. They refuse to sleep in their pods. They're becoming emotional. They're becoming whole," Duha argued. "Your own data shows they're healthier and learning better than ever." Vec's eyes glowed angry red. "Guards, open these doors." "Wait," a small voice called out. Everyone turned. Behind Vec, the dormitory doors had opened. A group of alien children stood there, their skin glowing with bright, steady colors. They formed a line in front of the humans, holding hands. "We won't go back to the pods," one child said firmly. Vec looked shocked. "This is unprecedented. Young ones do not disobey adults." "We're not disobeying," another child said. "We're thinking for ourselves. Isn't that what you wanted us to learn?" Jae-ho moved carefully, positioning himself where he could protect both the children and the human team if needed. But the children weren't finished. "Teacher Suji showed us how to feel," one small alien said. "Teacher Jinwoo taught us to help each other. Teacher Myray helped us understand our feelings. Teacher Haijin gave us stories." "And now," the first child said, "we're going to tell you a story, Administrator Vec." The children began to speak together, taking turns. They told about living in cold, lonely pods, about feeling empty inside, about wanting to reach out but not knowing how. Then they told about learning to play, to laugh, to care about each other. As they spoke, something amazing happened. Their combined emotions made their skin glow so brightly that the corridor filled with beautiful colors. The guards lowered their weapons, stunned by the display. "You see," Suji said softly to Vec, "this isn't contamination. This is growth. This is evolution. They're neural patterns," Taiwan said, checking his data pad. "They're showing signs of advanced development we've never seen before. Their minds are actually growing stronger through emotional connections." Vec stood silent, watching the children. For the first time, his own skin started to show colors other than red, soft blues, and purples mixed with his usual glow. Vec seemed to struggle with words. "I remember being in the pods as a child. I remember wanting something, but I didn't know what it was." "It was this," Myray said gently. "Connection, love, the freedom to be yourself." One of the smallest children walked up to Vec and took his hand. The administrator looked down, surprised. "Will you hear our story?" the child asked. "Really hear it?" Vec looked at the child, then at the guards, then back at the child. Slowly, his red glow faded to a gentle blue. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "it is time for all of us to learn a new way." The children cheered, their lights dancing on the walls. Ji-ho relaxed his protective stance, and Dua smiled. They had avoided a fight not through force, but through the very thing the aliens had once called primitive, the power of love and connection. The next morning, the main hall of the nursery ship was full. Alien officials from the Stellar Council sat in floating chairs, watching as Taiwan prepared to show his final results. The children waited quietly in the back with Jin Woo and Hai Jin, their skin glowing with excited colors. Honored council members, Taiwan began. What you're about to see will change how we think about learning forever. He pressed a button, and huge screens appeared in the air. They showed brain scans of the alien children, before and after the human teaching program. Look at these patterns, he said, pointing to the images. The old pod system only lit up one part of the brain, but our methods light up the whole brain at once. Mayray stepped forward. When children feel safe and happy, their minds work better. They learn faster. They solve problems better. They remember more. One council member raised a hand. But what about test scores? Hard data. I'm glad you asked, Suji said with a smile. She nodded to the children in the back. Children, would you like to show them? The alien children walked to the front of the hall. They carried robots they had built themselves, something that would have been impossible for them just weeks ago. We made these, one child explained, not from instructions, but from our own ideas. The robots moved in perfect patterns, dancing together like stars. The council members leaned forward, their eyes glowing with interest. Their engineering skills are 200% better than pod-trained children, Taiwan reported. Their problem-solving abilities are 300% higher. But how? Another council member asked. They spend so much time playing and telling stories. Watch this, Duha said. He turned to the children. Hey kids, remember that problem we talked about yesterday? About the ship's energy system. The children nodded eagerly. One small alien stepped forward and began to explain how they could make the ship's power system work better. The child's ideas were brilliant, mixing practical science with creative thinking in ways the adults had never considered. Impossible, Vec whispered, but his eyes were glowing bright blue now. They're thinking in ways we never. Because they're not afraid to try new things, Jin Woo explained. They're not afraid to be wrong. They know it's okay to make mistakes and learn from them. Hai Jin picked up a data pad. And look at their language skills. They're not just memorizing words anymore. They're creating poetry, writing stories, using language in new ways. The children demonstrated by telling a story they had written, a beautiful tale about stars learning to dance together. As they spoke, their skin glowed with so many colors it looked like a rainbow in space. But the most important proof, Suji said quietly, isn't in our data. It's in their hearts. She pointed to where two small aliens were helping a third who had dropped their robot. In the old system, they would have ignored each other. Now they worked together, solved problems together, cared about each other. Emotional intelligence doesn't replace logical thinking, Mayray explained. It makes it stronger. When we understand feelings, our own and others, we think better, we work better, we live better. The council members whispered among themselves. Finally, the head of the council stood up. We have seen enough, she said. This experiment has proven something we have forgotten long ago. Emotions are not primitive. They are essential. The children cheered, their lights filling the room with joy. Even the council members began to glow with new colors. Therefore, the council head continued, we are not just approving this program. We are expanding it. Every nursery ship in our fleet will adopt these methods. Vec stepped forward, surprising everyone. I volunteered to help spread these changes, he said. His skin glowed with a mix of blue and gold, colors of wisdom and hope. I have learned that true advancement comes not from suppressing our nature, but from embracing it fully. Sujai looked at her team. Duha, Jin Woo, Mayray, Hai Jin, Taiwan, and Jiho. Together, they had done more than teach. They had helped an entire species remember how to feel. 1 year later, Sujai stood at the window of the new Interstellar Child Care Academy on Earth. The building was beautiful, a mix of human and alien design, with walls that changed colors to match the emotions of the children inside. Ready for the graduation ceremony? Duha asked, joining her at the window. Suja smiled, watching ships land in the distance. Families were arriving from all over the galaxy for the first graduation of alien children trained under the new system. I can't believe how much has changed in just 1 year, she said. The main hall was filled with both humans and aliens. The alien parents glowed with new colors. They too had learned to show their emotions. Ambassador Rix stood on stage with Vec, both of them wearing the blue and gold robes of the Academy. Welcome, Rix said to the crowd, to a historic day. Today we celebrate not just our children's achievements, but a new understanding of what it means to be advanced. The graduating class walked in, 50 alien children, their skin shimmering with joy. Behind them came the human teachers, Jinwoo, Mei Rei, Hai Jin, Taiwan, and Ji Ho, each wearing teachers' robes decorated with star patterns. One of the children stepped up to the speaking platform. Sujai recognized her as the first child who had drawn the family picture in the learning pod a year ago. Before the humans came, the child said, "We thought learning meant being alone with facts and numbers. Now we know that real learning happens when we're together, when we feel, when we care." Another child joined her. "We learned that stories teach us wisdom. That play teaches us creativity. That feelings make us stronger, not weaker." The children had prepared a special surprise. Together, they performed a dance they had created, telling the story of their journey. As they moved, their glowing skin created patterns in the air. Mathematics and art combined in beautiful ways. "Look at that," Ta-One whispered, checking his datapad. "They're neural patterns during this performance. They're using both logic and emotion at levels we've never seen before." Vec stood up to speak next. He looked very different from the stern administrator who had once tried to stop their program. "When humans first came to our nursery ships," he said, "we called them primitive. We were wrong. They showed us that caring for children is the most advanced skill in the universe." The academy was already growing. More buildings were under construction outside. Alien species from all over the galaxy were sending their children and teachers to learn the human way of education. And now, Rix announced, "We have a surprise for our human friends." The Stellar Council members stood together. Earth is hereby recognized as the center of childcare excellence for the entire galaxy. All species will come here to learn how to raise their young with both wisdom and love. The crowd cheered. Suji felt tears in her eyes as she watched her former students hugging their parents, something that would have been impossible a year ago. "Teacher Suji," called a small voice. A group of children ran to her, their skin glowing like rainbows. "We made something for you." They handed her a book they had created. Inside were stories and pictures about their journey, about learning to feel, about discovering joy. On the last page, they had written in both human and alien languages, "Love is the most advanced technology in the universe." Duha looked at the book over her shoulder. "Not bad for a bunch of primitive humans, huh?" Sujai laughed. "We showed them what we've always known, that having a heart makes you stronger, not weaker." Outside the academy windows, more ships were arriving. New students, new teachers, new species ready to learn. The next class would be even bigger, with children from 100 different worlds. "Ready to start again?" Mirai asked, joining them with the rest of the team. Sujai looked at her friends, at the graduating class, at the new arrivals, and at the beautiful academy that represented everything they had achieved. In just 1 year, they had changed how an entire galaxy thought about raising children. "Always ready," she said, smiling. "After all, every child in the universe deserves to know what it means to be loved."